Today we're going to tie a razor foam parachute. First thing we're going to do is just start with a Tiemco 100 or any type of standard dry fly hook, and we're tying it on a fairly large size here just to help you guys see it on camera. This is actually a 12, but you can tie this all the way down to an 18, even a 20 if you're brave enough to go that small. And we're starting with some Veevus 14-aught thread, and I'm just using like a dun color. Now the first material that we're going to tie in is just going to be some Coq de Leon fibers. And the trick to this fly is we're going to tie this one nice and sparse. This will kind of be a lesson today about how you don't need to tie big bushy dry flies. And since this one we're going to tie it with a foam body, we can get away with kind of a sparse fly and still get some floatability. So we're going to tie this Coq de Leon fibers. I just plucked out a few here, maybe 5 or 6. I definitely don't want to overdo it with these. And we're going to measure out about a shank length there on our hook. And we're just going to tie them down there at the bend of the hook. And we can take our thread and just wrap our way forward nice and neat. All the way up to the front here. I'm going to take my thread about 3/4 of the way forward, about 1/4 of the way back from the eye of the hook. Now we're ready to tie in some parapost material, and I'm using kind of a light kind of pink here. It just helps you see this little fly. And I'm going to take a strip that's about 2-3 inches long, and I'm going to tie it down right in the middle here. Just a few tight wraps, and we can just draw it up. I'm going to take my bobbin and I'm just going to go around this little parachute here. I'm just going to build out kind of a little bit of a stem, kind of a little trunk, and that will be where our hackle will go. And I'm not going to go up too high on this one just because we're going to tie this fairly sparse, so I'm only going to get a couple of wraps of a hackle on there. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find ourselves a dun colored whiting rooster cape feather. I'm just going to measure it out. I might have this one just slightly oversized. Well, that's about right. I'd say that's actually pretty close to about right. Just so that those fibers kind of reach back and touch the bend of the hook. I probably could go a little bit bigger on this if I really wanted to, but sometimes the sparser I go, the more oversized I will actually make the hackle. I'm just going to trim the stem there so that I can tie it in right there at the bottom. And I'm just going to take it and wrap it just up that little post, just a few wraps. I don't want to go too high up that post. Got a little bit extra stem there. Probably could have just left it and tied over it, but in fact we might just do that. We'll just clean it up. There we go. I'm just going to draw all that up and get it out of my way, and then I'm just going to quickly just spiral my thread back there to the back, and we're ready for our body material. For that I've cut a really thin strip of razor foam, and I've used the thinner. Usually the package of razor foam, it'll come with a couple different sizes there. It'll come with 0.5 millimeter and 1 millimeter. And I'm using the 0.5 millimeter, the little thin strip, and then I've cut a strip that's only about 1 millimeter wide. I've cut it pretty long, about the length of the piece that comes in the package, and that way have some length to work with. We're just going to sneak this in here at the back. I'm just going to barely just grab the tip of it with my thread. Get that parapost material out of the way there. Come on. And we can take our thread forward. We're going to go all the way up here to the front of the hook. And you can do a quick whip finish at this point if you feel the need. Now we're going to take this razor foam. We're just going to wrap it around the hook here. Nice, even wraps. One right in front of the other. Kind of have to dodge your hackle feather here. And you can pull this tight in the beginning, or tighter I should say. Don't pull too tight because it will break because it's just foam. Pull it tight in the beginning to kind of get the taper of the body that you're looking for, and you'll see you'll get a little bit of segmentation with this foam too, which is kind of an added bonus, just like a little mayfly would have. I should say you don't have to tie this in just gray. You can tie this in black and olive and orange, whatever color the bug that you're trying to imitate. And then when I get to my thorax here, I'm going to put an extra wrap just right there behind that post, and I'm going to put a nice tight wrap right up there in front of that post. And I'll double up kind of right up close against it, just to kind of cover up any thread work that I have. And I'll do another wrap right up here in front. Maybe just one more to kind of bulk up that head just a little bit. There we go. I'm pulling relatively tight there just to kind of get it all to blend and flow together. And I can capture that with my bobbin. And I can just pull that foam out of there, get in there and trim it nice and close. And again, this would be a good time just to throw another small whip finish. Nice thing about this Veevus 14-aught thread is it doesn't build up much bulk. Now I'm just going to take my thread, I'm actually going to jump it just back right on top of the head there. I jumped it right back to the post. Now we're just going to take our hackle feather and do one full wrap all the way around. And I'll do two full wraps all the way around. And now we can come in with our thread. I'm going to just sneak it underneath that entire thing, all around the trunk of that post. And then I'll just take it and jump it right back up to the head of the fly. And you can come in here, trim out your hackle. It looks a little mangy there just because I lifted up the parachute so I can whip finish. We'll lay her all back down there and fluff her up here in a second. All I'm doing is just cleaning up that head. And let's get everybody all fluffed back up here. There we go. Then we can trim or parachute post, and you could trim this fairly flush if you're going for kind of a slicker water spinner kind of look, or you can trim it fairly tall if you want to kind of go for a done kind of a stand-up wing. We're going to trim this one. We'll trim it close. I usually trim them tall in a lot of the older videos. We'll trim it just kind of close there, just so we can get just enough of a hot spot. We'll call this more of a spinner kind of than let's say a done. And that is really all there is to it. Put a little shot of head cement under there, and that is a finished razor foam parachute. So it's a clever little way to get a high floating dry fly while still having a very sparse profile of like a spinner. With that added little small post there, it's in kind of a light pink, you can still see this little spinner style dry fly. So yeah, that razor foam, very clever material, very underused material, I think, in fly tying. Most guys will use dubbing, and most of us know that dubbing, once it gets fish slime and goo all over it, they are hard to dry out. So it's a nice thing about this foam body is it won't really absorb much of that fish goo and slime. So it's a pretty durable little fly. You can also rib it if you wanted to too. So I've seen some guys who will take a thin piece of like Mirage tinsel and counter wrap the tinsel on this body. Adds a little bit of flash, and also counter wrap and kind of help keep that all locked down and a little bit more durable. That is the razor foam parachute.